I'm going to wait another 30 seconds or so before we get started, so after we go live.
Okay, we will go live on both formats in 3, 2, 1. We are live.
We'll give everyone just a couple seconds to get assembled, and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. I am Glenn McGordy, and I'm a member of the UAW Monitors election team. As you likely know, in accordance with the results of the UAW referendum held in the fall of 21, this year, for the first time, the international officers of the UAW will be elected through union-wide direct elections, in which UAW members will cast votes directly for candidates nominated by delegates to the UAW's recent constitutional convention. The official election rules were issued in May of 2022. The direct election will take place this fall. Ballots will begin being mailed in mid-October, and votes will be counted the week after Thanksgiving. For more information about the upcoming election, please visit the Monitor's website at www.uawmonitor.com/elections. With all that said, we would like to officially welcome you to the candidate forum for the position of president, which will last approximately 2 hours. This is the final of 3 forums. These forums will be conducted and have been conducted in accordance with the candidate forum rules and are being held to promote the fair, honest, open, and informed participation of the union membership in the election of these international officers. Recordings of the forums will later be posted to the Monitor's website. I would now like to introduce, and it's my pleasure to introduce, the moderator for these candidate forums, Stephen Greenhouse, an American labor and workplace journalist and a senior fellow at the Century Foundation. Mr. Greenhouse was a reporter for the New York Times from 1983 to 2014 and covered labor and workplace for 19 years. He also served as a business and economics reporter and a foreign correspondent. He's the author of 2 books, Beaten Down, Worked Up, The Past, Present, and Future of American Labor, and The Big Squeeze, Tough Times for the American Worker. Mr. Greenhouse is an independent moderator and has no affiliation with UAW or the Monitor. And with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Greenhouse.
Thank you, Glenn. Welcome everyone to this evening's forum. I'm honored to moderate this forum for the United Auto Workers, which has long been one of the nation's greatest labor unions. I'd like to start with the forum rules, which were published to the candidates and are available on the Monitor's website. As you can see, only the candidates, myself, and members of the Monitor's team appear on the screen, and the comment and chat functionality has been disabled. To start out, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. The order of these opening statements was randomly determined by the Monitor. After opening statements, I will begin directing questions to the candidates. I decided on these questions independent of both the UAW and the Monitor. I did, however, consider questions that were submitted by UAW members, lots and lots of questions, to the Monitor's hotline. I will direct questions to the candidates. The candidates to whom the question is addressed will have up to 2 minutes to respond. The other candidates will then have up to 1 minute to address that response, the original question, or both. Finally, the candidate to whom the question was originally posed will have up to 30 seconds for rebuttal time. I have discretion to grant a candidate additional time. If any of the candidates want to respond to a candidate's answer to my question, please raise your hand using the Zoom app function. It might not be easy for me to see one's hand on this Zoom screen, but I will try. Given timing, all candidates will not be able to respond to each answer. When not speaking, all candidates must mute their microphones. Candidates are prohibited from interrupting other speakers and are only permitted to unmute when I indicate that it is their turn to speak. And please don't forget to unmute when it's your turn. If a candidate wants additional time, they should use the Zoom hand raise function. A timekeeper will display the remaining time available for candidates to speak. Once a candidate runs out of time, I will provide that a candidate must wrap up in the next 10 seconds. After that, the candidate's microphone will be automatically muted. After the question and answer portion, and hopefully we'll do 2 or 3 rounds of questions for each candidate will have the opportunity to present a 3-minute closing statement. We're looking forward to having a thoughtful discussion tonight about issues of relevance to the UAW membership. To do that, it is important that candidates follow the timing rules, not interrupt or speak over each other, and be respectful. If folks are unable to do that, I may limit or suspend a candidate's speaking time to maintain order. I should note that as moderator, I am committed to being scrupulously neutral as between the 5 candidates tonight, not taking sides or showing preferences. As determined by lot, the monitor's office says the speaking order for opening and closing statements shall be the following: Sean Fain first, Will Lehman second, Brian Keller third, Ray Curry fourth, and Mark Gibson fifth. Sean Fain will now give the first opening statement for 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank the monitor and thank Mr. Greenhouse for moderating and our members for watching and making an informed decision. Also like to ask you to keep our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico in your prayers, dealing with the aftermath of the recent hurricane that hit there. My name is Sean Fain. I hired in at Chrysler in 1994, and over 20 years, I've served our membership at every level of this union, starting at my local as an education and bylaws chair, as the CAP chair. I was elected to 5 terms as a committeeman and also served as shop chair. I was also elected as a national negotiator during 2009 in bankruptcy and again in 2011. In 2012, I was promoted to international staff by then President Bob King. Whether it's a local or national level, I've spent my career representing and fighting on behalf of the membership. Locally, when I was on our negotiating committee, we were able to secure new engine block work, which completely transformed our plant, which diversified our product offering. It doubled the amount of plants we supplied, which has been it gave our members a better job security for over 15 years. I was always an outspoken leader. I was anti-ratification in 2007 when tiers were implemented into our agreement. I have experience at every level of our union, and it's going to take leaders who are able to hit the ground running, because we're going to find ourselves in the early planning stages of bargaining as soon as these elections are over. I'm running because I believe we need leadership at the top who will take action when our members' futures and livelihoods are at stake. I'm running because I'm sick of complacency of our top leaders. JFK once said, there are risks and costs to a program of action, but they are far less than the long-range risk and cost of comfortable inaction. This has been our union's plight for the last 40 years with the shift to a company union philosophy where our leaders view the companies as our partners rather than our adversaries. As we've all seen these last 2 national agreements in 2015 and 2019, complacency at the top of our leadership doesn't get results for our members. We've had at least 10 years with perfect conditions for regaining and improving what was lost during the Great Recession. All we've witnessed was lost opportunities due to the IEB being focused on themselves rather than the membership. Over this same time frame, we've witnessed the IEB officers orchestrate themselves 30% wage increases, early retirement bonuses, and pensions for all the international staff, rather than securing cost of living, job security language that's been suspended for 13 years, rather than focusing on equal pay for equal work for our members, rather than focusing for our retirees, and rather than fighting for a good product. Good agreements don't mean anything if your top leadership isn't willing to enforce them. We have plant closing moratoriums in our language, yet plants continue to close in the best of times with zero action from our top leaders. Our membership can't afford 4 more years of missed opportunity. That's why I'm encouraging you to vote for myself and our Members United slate. I look forward to tonight's dialogue.
Thank you. Will Lehman, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
My name is Will Lehman. I've been a tiered worker with no pension at Mack Trucks in Macungie, Pennsylvania since 2017. And I represent rank and file workers who want to break up the massive UAW apparatus and take power to the working class. The only reason there is an election is because the UAW's leadership was convicted for taking bribes from the companies and selling us out. This isn't a question of a few bad individuals, but of the bureaucracy as a whole. The UAW bureaucracy is part of management. There are 450 bureaucrats who make over $100,000 in our dues money a year. The richest 15 UAW executives made a combined $3 million in just 2021. Ray Curry alone has made $2.7 million since 2004. The UAW is a name and union only. It divides us into tiers. It abandons the retirees and TPTs. and it forces through sellout contracts and strings us out on inadequate strike pay. As a result, the conditions we face are abysmal. Considering inflation, a new hire's wage today is lower than in 1930, before the UAW even existed. There is no industrial democracy, and the UAW and management have no concern for our rights and our lives. I am running for Stephen Dierkes, the cat worker who died in June after falling into a pit of molten iron at the foundry in Mapleton, Illinois, and for Catherine Pace, who died of COVID after the UAW forced us back into our plants without protection in 2020, and for Danny Walters, a Dana parts worker in Dry Ridge, Kentucky, who died after having a seizure on the line in June 2021. Neither the UAW nor the company even bothered to tell his wife what happened. Fellow workers, we hold the power to change society if we stop seeing ourselves as individuals and start seeing ourselves as part of the global working class, which produces all of society's wealth. I know the working class tends to forgive and forget, but I'm tired of forgiving the corporations, the UAW, the Democrats and Republicans, and the system they are a part of. I can't forget what they have done to us. They shuttered plants in our communities. They spend billions on wars, including Russia, which risks nuclear catastrophe, while telling us there is no money for higher wages and social programs. They've bailed out the banks in 2008 and again during COVID. 1 million people have died in the pandemic so that companies could continue to make profit. This is why we must replace the rule of the apparatus with workers' committees in each factory and workplace to build rank and file power. It is the workers who must make the decisions and establish genuine workers' democracy in our workplaces. This means transferring power from the unaccountable apparatus onto the shop floor to fight for what we need, not what the UAW says the company wants. I am not a miracle worker. I cannot do it on my own. It means building a mass movement of the international working class. If you agree, I ask for your vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keller, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. For those that don't know me, my name is Brian Keller. I was hired with Chrysler back in 1999. I have 23 years. I'm also a United States veteran. I held the positions of steward and chairman under Local 412, Unit 15 in the housekeeping department before they were outsourced. I have been fighting for almost 2 decades against the corruption, the collusion, and of course, the company-friendly concessionary agreements. The first priority is the needs of all active members and the retirees that make up the body of this union. I'm running for international UAW president to help the membership reclaim the power and the control of their union. I am also fighting to reclaim past concessions that we've lost while helping these companies in their darkest times, and to make sure that we educate the membership on all levels to help them so they can defend themselves against management and a rogue leadership. With the membership's help, we can reclaim our union through leadership reform and make the necessary changes so that we can fight in unity and stand in solidarity for better days. We know over the decades what we've lost. We all have something to lose and we all have something to gain. If we don't put nothing into this, we'll get nothing out of this. The people that hold office now have had over a decade to fix this. Even after the 16 indictments and these companies making record profits, we continue to receive concessionary agreements. General Motors back in 2018 made $11.8 billion. 2019, they made $13.9 billion in net income. Ford made $3.7 billion in 2018. And in 2019, they made $21.2 billion. Fiat Chrysler Automotive made $8.1 billion in 2018. And in 2019, they made $6.7 billion. So with these people that hold office now, why do we continue to receive concessionary agreements? Why haven't we got back what we've lost during the bankruptcy when it comes down to pensions, COLA, time and a half after 8, the job bank, job classifications, time and a half after 8? We still have a tier structure and a temp structure. And I'm here to ask for your vote and your support so we can change the membership's issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Curry, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Good evening, Stephen, and thank you for hosting this, moderating this event this evening. I am Ray Curry, and I am the president of the UAW, and I am seeking re-election for the UAW. Welcome this evening to our UAW family who's joined to watch this event this evening and get a better understanding of the views of the candidates. I hired in 1992 as a truck assembler at the Freightliner plant in Mount Holly, North Carolina, after having served honorably in the U.S. Army for 3 years on active duty, and prior to that, 5 years on the Army Reserve. During the time that I was at Mount Holly as a truck assembler, I grew within my local union and became an activist and participated in numerous committees, part of the leadership, being elected numerous times, and also serving in our community. I was elected or selected in 2004 at that time to be appointed to the international staff by former president and president emeritus, Ron Gettelfinger, and became a member of the Region 8 staff in 2004. 2010, after having served in the numerous capacities and servicing in 2 different states, I became the assistant director under then Director Gary Castile. 2014, I was subsequently elected as director of a 12-state region, very diverse region in Region 8. After that, I was elected as the Secretary Treasurer in 2018, and following the retirement of President Rory Gamble, now President Emeritus, I was elected by the International Executive Board as President of the UAW. During this time, I have been able to stand on behalf of all of our membership, retired and active, each and every day in my service. Dr. King once said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, or where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy. We've seen that challenge and controversy, and the Curry Solidarity Team has stood to meet that test during that very point and during that challenge. We continue to meet that very point each and every day as we meet the reforms within our organization. We stand in support of our membership to bring the membership back into greater days. We stand because we are organizers and we want to build upon our membership. We stand because we're strategists. We don't just make false demands and deliver false hopes. We make demands and we make strategic plans that are significant to be built upon in our organization. It's a piece in the path to be able to grow forward. It's a piece in the path to build on what was grown from the early days of the UAW to a future that grows our membership and brings us back where we were. I thank you for having me this evening. And again, Stephen, thank you for hosting this event.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you have your 3 minutes now.
Thank you. Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Mark Gibson, better known to all as Gibby. I'm the UAW shop chairperson of Detroit Diesel Corporation. I'm a proud member of Local 163 out of Region 1A. I come out of, I've served 3 terms. I'm going to my 4th term, 5th term will be next year. I started in 2011 as the shop chairperson. Like I said, I was fortunate to be elected 3 consecutive terms thereafter. I am part of a strong family unit that has many union members, from my grandfather, who was a Ford employee out of Local 245, to my Uncle Walt, who was a Detroit Diesel employee, a tin smith, tin knocker, and our EAP rep out of Local 163. My cousin Shelly, she's a pipe fitter with another local. I also have my 3 sons now at Detroit Diesel, proud members of 163, along with my 2 nephews, proud members of Local 163. My wife of 24 years, my high school sweetheart, known as, she's Catherine, but better known as Kat. She's a teacher and also a proud union member. We have 5 children, 3 boys, 3 of which are now working as apprentices at Detroit Diesel, and my twin daughters who just started middle school, which for some of the guys know that's 6th grade nowadays, news to me. My father, who also was a Detroit Diesel retiree, worked both at salary and hourly. He lives with us. He has Alzheimer's, was diagnosed at 68. We've had him with us for years now, and he enjoys the boat. Thank you all for signing in tonight. I truly hope this forum provides you with some great insight of my philosophy, some of my experiences, and my leadership style. and just two, actually three contracts at Detroit Diesel, one of which was the 2016 agreement, which was widely held as the best in the UAW, and an extension in 21, and a recently ratified 2022 agreement. My bargaining team and I have supported our members, listened, and turned our once divided and disappointed membership into a successful plant with proud UAW members. Our members now have a true path to full parity in just 5 years, which is actually the conclusion of their fifth, which would be sixth, with the highest assembly wage in the entire UAW structure. A generous 401k match for all employees and the return of subcredits for all members, which took me 11 years to get that back, by the way, with the help of the members. I want to add that we have made innovative contractual gains. However, significant and historical gains have also been made outside of the contract by listening to the membership and ultimately getting their approval, such as the elimination of Tier 2. I had that working outside of the contract when I came into office in 11, had effectively worked with my membership and abolished it by 2013. Our process was later replicated by others in the UAW, which is outstanding. I'd love to hear that. They don't have to give credit, but we all know where it comes from. And again, I'm very aggressive. I facilitated inverse layoffs.
Time, please wrap up in 10 seconds.
Gotcha. Securing new work and just a few other ones to mention a few. I'm a leader and committed to ensuring that the most knowledgeable and respectful experts for all sectors are always around me and working collectively to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by first posing one common question to all 5 candidates, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. And for that question, I'm not taking responses from other candidates. You each have 2 minutes to answer this question. I asked this common question because so many UAW members submitted variations of this question to basically all of the candidates. Question: you're running to be president of the UAW, a union that has 400,000 members and will be negotiating several huge contracts next year. What experience do you have negotiating contracts? And what experience do you have that might assure UAW members that you can run a large 400,000 member organization like the UAW? And we'll start with Mr. Fain. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first off, I was a national negotiator during bankruptcy in 2009. And I think, that was a mandate from the government. It really wasn't a negotiation, but it was a great experience because when you go through a situation like that, you feel it and you never forget it. In 2011, it was a different circumstance of negotiations because we still had a no strike clause where we could not strike by order of the government. 15 and 19, I was involved in national negotiations. I felt like, we left things on the table. I just don't feel like we addressed the issues, the tiers and all these issues dealing with retirees, post-retirement health care. There's just so many issues that weren't dealt with, and the economic demands come from the president's office. So, I've stood up against tiers for years back in 2007, but the one thing, you have to look at, and the bottom line is simply this: good agreements don't mean anything if your top leadership's unwilling to enforce them. We've had plant closing moratoriums. We've had agreements where we flat out violate our Constitution. I believe it's Article 19, Section 6, where, locations with lesser agreements should not infringe on locations with better agreements. But we've sat here and witnessed plant after plant lose work to other plants that have, a less fortunate agreement. Bargaining, no matter what section you deal with, it's the same concept. Which I laid out on my Facebook Live thing. September 14th's got to be a hard deadline when we go into bargaining, no matter what the deadline is from whatever company. But the bottom line, when we get into bargaining, we have to assess where we are, where the companies and businesses are, and we have to make a decision as to how we attack bargaining. And then from that point, we involve the membership. With the whole process, there's local. It's all the same. Bargaining's bargaining. Negotiating committees are elected. Demands are taken to the membership. We sit down and act strategies. We prepare the membership. And we put plans to action.
Okay, Mr. Lehman, same question. What experience do you have negotiating contracts? What experience do you have that might assure UAW members that you could run a large union like the UAW?
Well, I've never had any position in the bureaucracy. My experience is the experience of all rank and file workers. I was hired into Mack Trucks in 2017. I've been on a tier ever since. No pension, separate tier worker. Ray Curry's team has made the false statement that they eliminated tiers. We absolutely have tiers. And even workers that are at top rate don't have a pension. That's a tier in benefits. My first strike in 2019, first time Mack struck in 30 years. We were striking for a lot of things that the bureaucracy failed to deliver on. One was the elimination of tiers. There was no question that they were going to eliminate it. They also didn't want to bring pensions back. As far as 2021, we saw the strike of NRV. They rejected 3 contracts in a row, and then the company rammed through the last one using the UAW, and it only passed by 17 votes. That's the experience that I've had. As far as the UAW's experience, the bureaucracy has been giving things away for 40 years. It's been one bureaucrat after another, and they all make claims that they're going to change things, and yet the membership has gone from 1.5 million members in the late 1970s to 372,000 active members today and 600,000 retirees. So it's actually 1 million UAW members. But in most typical fashion, the UAW forgets its retirees. And if experience was a major concern for the UAW, they wouldn't have barred Jim Coakley and John Gunnan from running. 2 retirees that were both barred from running for the UAW presidency had more experience than everyone here with the UAW, and yet they're not allowed to participate because this is an anti-democratic process. There's also other workers, SEs and TPTs, SEs especially. I know one that he's not even allowed to run for this position, yet he pays union dues to this organization. That's my experience.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Keller, what experience do you have negotiating contracts? And what experience do you have that would assure UAW members that you could run a large union like the UAW? 2 minutes.
Well, first off, this union was founded by average workers like ourselves, not certified public accountants, not people with business degrees, just average labor workers. I have negotiated on a local level a few of our local agreements before our jobs were outsourced. And the reality is we've had 43 years of so-called experience. This union had 1.5 million auto workers back in 1979. We have 150,000 today. Is that experience? Is that the experience that we want? Where they push company-friendly concessionary contracts? They push a tier system and a temp system? They don't support equality? That's pretty divisive, right? Even if you look at the UAW Constitution, Articles 2, Section 1, where it talks about to improve working conditions, to create a uniform system of shorter hours, higher wages, health care, and pensions. That's a clear violation of the Constitution. They negotiated to get rid of pensions and health care for those that don't have it. I will bring all these things back. I will fight to get these things back with the help of the membership. These companies are making record profits. The workforce is much smaller today than it was 20 years ago. There's no reason why we can't get these things back. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Curry, what experience do you have negotiating contracts? And what experience do you have that might assure UAW members that you know how to run a large organization like the UAW?
Thank you, Stephen. Currently, I'm running that large organization as the elected president of the UAW. I've spent that time also bargaining in the heavy truck sectors and other sectors in numerous areas. That bargaining experience is significant because those agreements were not standalone agreements and only local agreements. They were actually master agreement locations covering numerous locations in numerous states across the US. I also served as a director of a very diverse region that also was reflective of a number of different sectors of our membership. Those things are all key and they're important as you start this process with regard to bargaining. Bargaining doesn't start at the time of an exchange taking place. There's research and other efforts that are part of that process, and they start well before the expiration date of the agreement. I'll have to tell you also that I am very proud of the degrees that I actually have been able to attain. The degrees that I've been able to attain were successful as a result of a union negotiated benefit, tuition assistance, provided to a number of our locations and our members. And I fought for those hours after work to be able to complete those programs. Those programs also have assisted me through the process in the number of leadership roles that I've been able to maintain for the International Union. I stand as a strong leader, a strategist with a vision who seeks to make improvements inside of the workplace for each and every one of our members, but also never forgetting our retirees, because in a number of those agreements that I've been involved in, we made sure that we negotiated benefits for our retirees, improvements in healthcare, and retiree bonuses during the life of those collective bargaining agreements. So to say that there's anything else that's different, I've led the organization in that role and in that capacity, and I look forward to continue doing that for our active and retired members, 1.1 million in total. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gibson, what experience do you have negotiating contracts? And what experience do you have that might assure UAW members that you would know how to run a large organization like the UAW?
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Bottom line, I came in at 11. My experience is that I've worked outside of just where Detroit Diesel stood with. Detroit Diesel was GM. Okay, we have a GM contract bought by Roger Penske, who I'm still in contact with, who was the owner of our facility. He's one of our #1 customers to this date. As we keep moving forward, it's sold to Chrysler, which I understand that Chrysler heartache because we inherited that mess. I know how to deal with the world leadership abroad. Chrysler sold it to Daimler. Okay, now the Daimler leadership is German leadership. That's how Brother Curry and I have met. But what people don't know is also that I'm close with Gary Castile, who was the director out of 8. After meeting Gary Castile, who was the Secretary of Treasury at the time, he reached out to me after one trip alone to Germany to see how I dealt with the World Committee, which is different sectors of every. There's two people, car division, one for the truck division, to go abroad. Bottom line is he reached out to me. What would I do differently down in the South, down in Alabama, because we're so organized up here in Detroit and how we're facilitating things. I reached out to him since. He's still very good friends with Ray, which is no disrespect. God bless those guys. But at the end of the day, I have the know-how. I have the leadership abroad, which is very helpful in everything I do. But I have the leadership here. I reached out to the Bob Kings, the Rory Gambles, anyone that would take my call that facilitated me. The 3 contracts speak for themselves. I can let them speak for themselves as people go on. But one other thing I want to talk about was retirees. We don't negotiate the pensions at the end of the day when they're outside. But what I was able to do for our retirees that were left behind back in 16, before my time, I'm sorry, back earlier than that, the 04 group, 1,000 people lost their medical benefits, okay? But the bottom line is I came back in 16 with my committee, was able to get them medical options, was able to get them more options in the extension, and even have more options for them now as we finish our 22 agreement, and that involves our care here, which is on site. So thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you very much. So now I will begin the first round of questions. I'll direct a question to each of you. And if you want to respond to the person who answers, use the raise the hand function. Sorry about this ambulance outside. First question for Mr. Curry. The administration caucus has continuously held the top offices of the UAW since the late 1940s. Some UAW members say it's time to elect new leadership after the administration caucus has over the years agreed to numerous concessions and a wage tier system, and after several of the leaders from the administration caucus were involved in a major corruption scandal. But supporters of the administration caucus say now would be a very bad time to change leadership, well, with the big 3 contract talks next year and huge changes rolling through the industry, such as a possible recession, the worst inflation in 40 years, and electric vehicles coming on fast. Mr. Curry, how do you respond to those who say the administration caucus has been in control long enough and that it's time for a change?
Stephen, the administration caucus, as the reference is there, we keep talking about leaders and we keep labeling leaders. While the administration caucus has existed for a number of years, the administration caucus has also produced some great leaders who stood on behalf of the membership, active and retired, and also will be able to take a stand and be able to protect this industry. Leaders who were also in the toughest times of this country through recessions and other, to be able to protect the integrity of the organization. Those 16 plus members that you talk about on the administration caucus, they've been removed. They're not members of the UAW anymore. But to tarnish everyone and paint everyone with the same brush, that's unfair. It's an unfair process. And the Curry Solidarity team clearly is reflective of that. This team has been able to build upon the foundation of our past that was created by so many retirees and so many other members. This team is also building and been successful in a number of collective bargaining agreements. We're moving things forward. We're organizing. Just today alone, there was a huge announcement of neutrality agreement forever energy, where the UAW will partner in a new location for 2,000 plus workers. We also have organized 17,000 new members in higher ed. We're organizing workers and part suppliers. We got an ongoing card count, a card check piece in the future that's playing out as members at Ultium want to be organized. So this leadership team that's in place is doing the work, has done the work, has continued to build upon our successful past. And they are the key piece that removed the corruption out of our organization and has led to all the successful reforms that no one seems to remember that are taking place today. The corruption's been removed. There's no ongoing corruption within our organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fain, you were first to have your hand up. You have a minute to respond.
Yeah, in the words of Aretha Franklin, it's all about RESPECT. These companies don't respect our leaders, and because they don't respect our leaders, they don't respect our members. When they call our leaders fat, dumb, and happy, they should take it as an insult to the entire union. I don't feel or see the sense of urgency from our top leadership that these current times require. When the government monitor issues a report stating that when our current president took over, things took a turn severely in the wrong direction, and that he was concealing corruption and had to be taken before the Department of Justice in order to get our leadership to comply, it just shows me that this current administration and their slate are not willing to take on the responsibility of turning this union around. Bottom line, if you watched the vice president debate the other day, the three Curry slate candidates said they claimed they eliminated tiers. To claim that's a joke. There should be no doubt with the direction we're heading with the government monitor or from our membership. Our members on the shop floors and work sites are out there busting their asses, and they deserve to know without any doubt that the leadership has their backs. When you elect me in a Members United slate, that's what you're going to get.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have a minute to respond.
The monitor's own report on July 6th, which I encourage every worker on here to read if they have not, stated that Ray Curry and the UAW bureaucracy were concealing the mishandling of cash and working to exclude a representative of the monitor from an executive session meeting of the International Executive Board. Borowski had to call on the Justice Department to send an attorney after you exhibited a months-long, and I quote, pattern of uncooperative conduct, end quote. The Justice Department had to tell you to cooperate with the monitor or face legal repercussions for violating the consent decree. What I want workers to realize here is that the actions of the bureaucracy are where all the corruption is at in the UAW. We on the shop floor are not committing these acts of corruption, and that is why the power needs to only be in our hands. There are 450 UAW officials making over $100,000 a year, 75 million a year in salaries, 258 servicing reps, 134 assistants, 83 secretaries, 42 organizers, 27 bookkeepers, 25 temporary campaign associates, 8
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Thank you.
10 stenographers. I would like to know from Ray Curry, if I could ask him a question.
No, you'll get a chance later. Mr. Keller, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you. These people that hold office now, Ray Curry and Sean Fain, they've had over a decade to make changes. When James Hardy got busted selling 2-tier jobs and he narked out General Holyfield, Ray Curry and Sean Fain, they turned a blind eye to this corruption. They don't have the backbone to lead this union. They allowed these people that were in power to do this to us because they wanted to save their jobs so they didn't get sent back to the floor. The Solidarity House said they don't negotiate for retirees, but somehow the retirees lost COLA and the Christmas bonus, and so did active workers. They didn't do anything. Back in 2009, we had language in the Chrysler contract in the highlights stating that if 2 tiers surpasses the 25% cap, they would automatically come up to tier 1 wages. That language never made it in the contract, and it was in the highlights book. So it was signed off on.
10 more seconds.
I wouldn't depend on the leadership we have now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Thank you, Stephen. It's like most books, you have to read the book to the end of the cover. And that monitor's report talks about true transparency having taken place, the replacement of a general counsel, replacement of an outside counsel that was functioning on behalf of the UAW. The monitor also acknowledges the efforts led by President Curry, as stated in his report, and he talks about how he feels things are moving in a better, transparent process moving forward. And in regard to the fat, dumb, and happy statement, that was part of the 15 plus people who were convicted prior to. That statement has never referenced any of the current International Executive Board members or the Curry Solidarity team. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Now a question for Brian Keller. Mr. Keller, you've been a frequent critic of the people who work in Solidarity House and people on the International Executive Board. If you're elected, you'll be working alongside a lot of folks whom you've repeatedly criticized and attacked. How would you work with them if you are elected? How would you operate if the UAW vice presidents handling the GM, Ford, and Stellantis negotiations are from a slate that you vigorously opposed? Here's a question from a UAW member. Mr. Keller, you're not running on a slate, nor have you worked with and have strongly criticized the present IEB. If you're elected president, how do you expect to get any of your campaign promises achieved without the support of anyone on the IEB?
Because the reality is this is not about me. This is about the membership. I'm willing to work with anybody that holds any particular office. It's up to them. They have the responsibility to be transparent and to negotiate these agreements in the membership's interest. And I'm there to assist. We are there to come together as a collective bargaining team to work together. I can't control other people's actions, but I'm willing to work with them as long as they're transparent and they're willing to negotiate these companies and these contracts in the interest of the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. No responses. So next question for Mark Gibson. Mr. Gibson, in your campaign material, you state that you've been a 4-term shop chairperson for the Detroit Diesel Local 163, a local with, I believe, 3,300 members. Why have you chosen to run for the presidency of the UAW for the union's very top position, rather than, say, to be a regional director or to be one of the 3 vice presidents? If you're elected president of the UAW, won't you need to do a lot of learning on the job?
Thanks, Stephen. Why I decided. There was a lot of factors, but some recent developments, we lost our respect. I mean, I know that doesn't have to do with exactly everyone that's in office right now. I'm not critical of Ray. I've known Ray for over a decade. I've had Chuck Browning as my director. Obviously, my expert tutelage really came from Rory Gamble under his leadership. For years, I was with him. And I do have the experience. I've seen it. I've been offered 3 positions with the International Union, and I respectfully declined. And I think that made our unit a lot stronger at Detroit Diesel. We had a cohesive unit. They've always assured me they want to pull, they pull strong people. And I get that. And that's a compliment to anyone, and I appreciate what everyone's trying to do. But I thought my best position was to stay with Detroit Diesel like I have. We've evolved. We've gained membership. We've increased to 3 full shifts. We're actually 1,400 members at Detroit Diesel. There's 400 other members at a unit called Detroit Axle, which was separated by Chrysler back when they bought it from Roger Penske. We also had Purim. I've evolved that. I've taken these groups and evolved them. I've even evolved further with the liners that we were going to lose to China because the inferior metal. We proved that with my elected guys, my appointed guys. I have an excellent team. But we just recently, which people don't know about, is it expanded from Detroit and Redford, Michigan, where Detroit Diesel is, into Livonia, Michigan, where I grew up. How did we do that? We took the warehouse, the work that was pushed out of my facility. We intentionally were working on it in 16. We always had the eyes to gain that work at the top wage, just like I did when I brought turbos into the plant, replaced Purim. I've been through the whipsawing with Tulane, Utah, with Detroit Diesel. And again, I'm down to 2 units, and we're going to gladly work together with us and Axle, Detroit Diesel. We're one big happy family. Eventually, it will be 1,800 members out of that facility. And then we also have a smaller group that's a different region, Local 412. Again, separate, but that's our salary engineers, great guys. We work together all the time. But that's my ask. And like I said, I also have my 3 sons in that
Please wrap
facility,
up.
along with my nephews. So take that for what it's worth. Family.
Thank you. A question for Sean Fain. Mr. Fain, one of your main campaign slogans is no concessions, no tears. Certainly no one in the UAW wants concessions or tears, but members ask, how will you achieve your promise of no concessions and no tears? What happens if the nation and the auto industry are mired in a recession during next year's negotiation and GM or Ford or Stellantis say they'll close several plants and lay off thousands of UAW members unless the union agrees to a pay freeze of a year or two, or unless the UAW agrees to extending tiers for a year or two? A member sent in this question specifically for you. Everyone agrees that those are good goals, no concessions, no tiers. But please specifically explain how you will end concessions and tiers. I would like more specifics than I create solidarity in the membership and ask for it harder and raise strike pay, unquote.
Well, first off, yeah, you brought up the first part of this when you said about conditions. I mean, the bottom line, the economy has got to be churning along. We've had 10 years. We had 2 golden opportunities in 15 and 19 to end this, and it was achievable. But, as far as the plan for ending tiers, first we have to change the mindset. Even when the question's asked, it's posed like it's some type of impossible fantasy because we've been conditioned to think achieving these things are impossible. It is possible. We've been there before, but we have to elect leaders who are willing to fight for it. Second thing, these companies have made billions in profits annually over the last 10 years. It's by the hard work of our members, enduring long, grueling hours, standing and walking on concrete floors, performing repetitive jobs, abusing their bodies, that generate those profits. These companies have a responsibility to the workers, and our members have an overwhelming mandate with the one member, one vote initiative that they expect the leadership to end concessions and tiers, and under my leadership, we'll prepare the membership to exercise their power to get results. The membership will drive the results. Third, if the companies are unwilling to come to the table on the issues such as cost of living, job security, ending tiers and temp abuse, helping our retirees, then we have to strategically target them and hit them where it has the hardest impact for the fastest resolution. It's going to be a battle. I remember my grandfather proudly talking about striking in 1950 for 110 days to get pensions at Chrysler. If the membership truly wants to go after ending tiers and concessions, you have to elect leaders with a vision, with a plan, and a backbone to fight for it. That's why that's why you should vote for Members United.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have your hand up. You have a minute.
Yeah, I don't think he really answered it. So I would like for his rebuttal to actually answer the worker. But my appeal is not to some kind of bureaucratic method. My appeal is to the international working class being united in rank and file committees and coordinating action internationally. What corporations have done over the years is pivot to a cheaper source of labor somewhere else, and the UAW has no response to that. It can't unify workers internationally, and workers internationally are rightfully skeptical of the UAW for its actions, especially with the corruption scandal. That's why we need to form rank and file committees internationally. What the UAW likes to do is wave the American flag and say only made in USA, when that divides us. We need global unity to face multinational corporations, and it's only going to come from the workers organizing.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have a minute to respond to Mr. Fain.
Thank you, Stephen. Clearly, there's going to be a huge effort, and that effort is educating the membership and the membership's commitment to understand those things that are prominent for them, including resolutions that come across the table. When we receive those resolutions early on from the membership, we talk and discuss a number of different things with them about what that impact is, understanding what that financial impact is of those items, and attainability of those items. We've had success in a number of different strikes, and I'm not afraid to authorize the strike. We've had success in strikes that have reduced the actual progression periods for a number of different locations. And we've also had global solidarity to support us in this process. We're members of Industrial, and we actually serve on the Industrial International Executive Board. Through that board, whether it's Canada, whether it's Mexico, whether it's Brazil, we've had partners to be able to support us with regard to our international strikes, with regard to our organizing efforts. All of those are key, but a membership commitment, an educated membership, and standing in solidarity and ready to take on the toughest of challenges will be the key piece for each and every one of us in upcoming bargaining, and not just in the auto sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keller, 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, both Ray Curry and Sean Fain had plenty of time to reverse this. When, like I said, we had a contract in 2015 and in 2019, and GM, Ford, and Chrysler, their net income was in the billions. But here we still have a tier structure, and we have a temp structure, and we haven't received anything that we've lost in the past. So, you know, we talk about the consent decree that they've been violating, and the fact that you know, Ray Curry was not elected. He was appointed by Rory Gamble. He didn't come through from the delegates or the membership. It was through Rory Gamble because of the corruption. We wouldn't have this UAW federal oversight if it wasn't for those people that were in office, that were indicted, and the ones that turned a blind eye to the corruption in order to save their seats. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you have a minute, and don't forget to unmute.
Lowering the hand too. On the no concessions, I think I've already shown that I've went through very tricky folks with a pension, folks without a pension, the 401ks, things I inherited from the 98 agreement, which was a 13-year agreement. It is tricky. I mean, am I going to lay down my strategy? I've had members ask me at unit meetings the same thing, and I go, no. There's things I do that I think are unprecedented. One example I will give though of how I've done stuff is I intentionally brought my members back to the table because the company didn't answer something in this last set of agreement. And I don't know, I told my committee, whatever happens on this, okay, it's on me. My members heard me loud and clear at that table. I didn't get the answers. The company thought they had a TA. Well, they didn't answer some questions about our payroll system that I knew was like, we get almost a free bite of the apple, the way I looked at it. My members listened to me turn that contract down 70-30-ish. Month later, back up the other way, 70-30. To me, that was profound, but you had to do it, okay? Even with the threats of an unfair labor practice from the company. They didn't answer the questions. I told my members, this is what we need to do. They trusted me in my committee, and that's what I will bring to the entire UAW.
Thank you. I'm going to give Mr. Curry a little time to respond to Mr. Keller's what he said about corruption.
Thank you. Ray Curry was actually elected by the International Executive Board pursuant to the Constitution. The first time that this language was actually used was in 1970 at the passing following the unfortunate plane crash of Walter Reuther, when Leonard Woodcock actually was elected by the International Executive Board also pursuant to the same constitutional language. Rory Gamble was elected upon the removal of Gary Jones pursuant to the same constitutional language. I was not appointed by Rory Gamble or the International Board. I was elected pursuant to the Constitution, and I stand here now available for re-election, and it has nothing to do with the corruption actually taking place. It's got something to actually do with the Constitution. The Constitution that we most recently had a convention for, and our delegates reaffirmed with a number of different provisional changes, but that Constitution stands true, stands loud, and it's our foundational pieces from the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fain, thanks for your patience. You have 30 seconds to rebut everything.
Yeah, just, I just want to address, Mr. Keller said that I had a chance to reverse these things. Bottom line, it just shows what his lack of understanding of how national negotiations work is. When it comes to economic issues, those demands come from the president's office, and typically it's the president and the VPs that are in there with the corporate higher ups. We're not in the room. I've ran subcommittees. So first off, you need to understand how national bargaining works, and that's, again, just shows a lack of understanding. Secondly, just to talk about what Will was saying, I mean, I've been to industrial meetings, I've been to global union network meetings. We do work with the unions worldwide, and it is a good thing. And can we do better? Hell, yes, we can. And that's why I'm running for president.
Thank you.
Can I respond to
Quick,
that?
I'm gonna ask you a question now, and you can respond as part of your longer response. Okay. Mr. Lehman, an article in the SA Times, Sassa Times quotes remarks that you made to Ford workers in Germany and Italy. That article quotes you as saying, quote, "My campaign supports the call for complete abolition of trade unions and the transfer of power to workers who I urge to form executive committees at work." That's an exact quote from the article. My question, why are you running for the presidency of one of the nation's most prominent unions, the UAW, if you support the, quote, complete abolition of unions? Also, if you're elected president of the UAW, will you seek to abolish or dissolve the UAW? You call for replacing unions with executive committees at work. Do you think these executive committees would be nearly as effective as a 400,000 member union like the UAW in, let's say, mounting and sustaining and providing strike benefits for a major strike?
Well, first off, I'm calling for the abolition of the bureaucracy of the UAW. There's two different classes, and workers need to be keenly aware of that. The workers are the 372,000 members. The bureaucrats are the 450 people making $75 million a year, sucking off of our dues. There's, parasites off of us. I'm calling for the abolition of the parasitic layer. We, the UAW members that pay dues, have every right to decide what we do with the 1.16 billion in assets. We should have full strike pay. Another key thing that happened at the convention was the bureaucracy momentarily allowed the increase in strike pay to 500, only to take it back in a very undemocratic way later. So we would have had $500 in strike pay. It should be full. No worker should be strung out on less because we're out on strike. The UAW bureaucrats don't take any less when we're on strike, and they're making over $100,000 a year easily. The president at around $250,000 a year easily. So no UAW member deserves less for strike pay. And the UAW likes to say, "Oh, well, we want to protect the strike fund." Well, that $75 million a year can go right into the strike fund. Selling Black Lake, Solidarity House, and all the training centers that serve as slush funds can go right in the strike fund. And we'll have plenty in the strike fund. So the workers need to have access to that money that is ours, not have the UAW bureaucrats sit on it like it's their own private purse, like they can fly off to some golf course and use the strike fund for that. And that's why they're in this position now. We spent $6 million as of the convention on the Federal Monitor babysitting the UAW bureaucrats. We shouldn't need to do that. We're not the ones that committed any of these crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have your hand up, a minute to respond.
No, there's a number of things that were there, Stephen, and clearly the discussion with regard to compensation and other things in strike fund. We're committed to utilizing the strike fund and supporting any opportunity to advance a workforce in any location across the country. This International Executive Board has not rejected one ask of a strike that's been proposed by the membership. Currently, that strike fund sits right now at $837 million. And the membership has been the responsible party for moving that strike fund's needle. The action that took place at the convention, there was a motion for reconsideration that was raised by a member off the floor. The delegates supported the motion for reconsideration. As a result of that motion for reconsideration, there was an additional vote with regard to the amount of the strike pay, and the strike pay reverted back from $500 to $400. The membership took that action. The most highly powerful party of the convention process made that decision. And that decision wasn't just by a voice vote or anything else.
Time, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Fain, you have your hand up. You have a minute.
Yeah, I think it's very disingenuous to go back to blaming the membership and the delegates at the convention for reversing this. We all know what happens. The IEB runs the convention. They went out, the membership voted for this overwhelmingly to increase it to $500. And on the night before the last day, when the regions had their dinners, the IAB went to work, got the staff to go out there and pressure the delegates and pressure local leaders to rescind it the next day. And it just so happened, it was a delegate from Ray Curry's local that proudly got up there and announced he was from Ray's local that made the motion to cut it back to $400. And the other thing that was disingenuous was the fact that they misled the delegates when they said that the GM strike would have cost 90 some or 29 million more dollars if it was raised to 500. What they didn't say was if they raised it to 400, it would have been probably 23 million. So it was really only an increase of about $6 or $7 million, which is a drop in the bucket of the strike fund.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, I believe you have a hand up. Please unmute.
Thanks, Stephen. I just wanted to talk real quick about, answer a little bit of that. It's not about abolishing the entire UAW. And it's unfair to say, you know, the leadership that's in there right now is completely corrupt. What happened with Gary Jones is just abysmal. You know, he brought people into some corruption. I knew I had an eerie feeling with his ass when I met him with Rory Gamble. And when I felt it should have been probably Gary Castile moving into that role. Now, that's just my opinion as a young guy, maybe in 2018, I'm not that young, but bottom line, it's about organizing. And I go, we still need to organize some of the Southern plants. And again, I love those guys. They're my brothers. I'm connected to them through what we do in our industry. The powertrain's built in Detroit. It goes down south. I just came back from a BET conference, a bus engine truck with Ray Curry was down there. But when it came to money, I haven't been paid by the UAW. I'm paid by Detroit Diesel, always been. When we were in receivership, we paid money out of our own pocket to go on trips. People know this. This isn't something, you know, I take this seriously. My bargaining committee takes it seriously. I've had members come and go in different elected positions, but they've done it on their own. So we're not looking to take money.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lehman, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Again, for the workers listening, I'm not talking about abolishing the UAW as far as the workers are concerned. That is not what I'm saying. What bureaucrats like to pitch is exactly that, because they're worried about their positions. They like to say we, like we're on the same side, but we're not. Workers at Ventra and Evar, Michigan are starting at $14 an hour, while other members of the bureaucracy are making over $100,000 a year. We're not the same.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to start a second round of questions, and I will address the first question to Brian Keller. Mr. Keller, this is from a member of Local 1302. With all the controversies and illegal activities surrounding the past UAW leadership, what procedures and what processes would you put into place to eliminate those unsavory activities and prevent them from ever happening again? What would you do to reestablish trust between the leadership and the rank and file?
Thank you for that question. Well, for one, again, it's not about me. What am I going to do? It's what we're going to do as a collective bargaining union. It's up to the membership to reform the leadership and to make the necessary constitution amendments and bylaw changes. And that's where we have to start. We have to start by reforming the leadership that we have now. And we got to make the necessary constitution and bylaw changes to make sure this type of corruption don't take place again in our union. Thank you.
Thank you. No hands up? Okay, next question for Sean Fain. Mr. Curry, do you have a hand up? Do you want to respond? Okay, Mr. Fain.
I would like to respond, Stephen.
Okay,
Thank you.
go on.
You know what, Stephen, I've actually done that work and collectively with the International Executive Board, not just Ray Curry himself, but I led the reform efforts that took place beginning in 2019. I was responsible for the original RFP that started the process of our top to bottom reviews within the organization. That ultimately led to the removal of a 40-year auditor that was part of an external process for the International Union. It led to implementing a new layer of review processes with administrative accountants within the Secretary Treasurer's office, ultimately an internal auditor that was selected. And our International Executive Board is continuing to do that work to make sure that we don't cross this type of path again. That's a successful piece about a joint effort, and the Courage Solidarity team is leading those type of reforms each and every day. But those efforts began at the time that we were aware of those things, and we began the process to establish those reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lehman, you have your hand up. You have a minute.
Yeah, the easiest way to achieve those reforms is to abolish the bureaucracy that can't be trusted with our dues money. That's pretty much the simplest way to do that. And that's what all these bureaucrats don't want. They want to stand in the way of that. Workers are perfectly capable of making the decisions for our own way forward democratically on the shop floor, with open bargaining on the shop floor for every worker to see, not closed door bargaining. That was a big root of the corruption. Nothing behind doors with the companies. Everything needs to be on the shop floor, open for every worker to see. We're all adults. We should all have a democratic say in the decision-making of the union. It's not up to just some bureaucrats to go off and have these closed meetings with the golf or whatever else with the company. Nobody knows what any one of them does, when they have these closed door bargaining. That needs to be ended, needs to be democratic on the shop floor for every worker to hear.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keller, I saw your hand up for a second and it came down. Do you want to add anything?
I mean, the reality is we sit there and talk about experience, but then we look at Lordstown, you see what's happening with Belvedere, and then you look at John Deere. They lost the tractor cabs to Mexico, and their contract was just negotiated last year. So we want to sit there and talk about experience, and we want to talk about that we got rid of the corruption, but is the collusion still there? That's the question I have, because these contracts are still negotiated in the company's interest, not in the members. Thank you.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Fain. This is from a UAW member. How do we keep solidarity throughout all the different sectors of the UAW? In other words, if you're elected president, how would the UAW build a union with the solidarity and common sense of purpose when it represents auto workers, throughout the Midwest, graduate student researchers in California, nurses in Ohio, museum workers in New York City, casino workers in various cities? And related to that, what is your plan for organizing and growing the UAW?
Well, first off, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, and any good leader, understands that. As far as organizing goes, I mean, this is really going to be it's kind of hard to answer in 2 minutes, but we have to get back to setting a standard and give workers a reason to want to be a part of something greater. It doesn't matter what sector we're from, it's the same issues. The UAW was born out of a Great Depression. It grew quickly because workers saw a difference, in what they had. I said this back in 2007 when I was anti-ratification due to tears, and I'll say it again. What incentive does a worker in a non-union transplant or other sectors have to organize when they make the same wage or better and they have the same conditions we have? Solutions such as the GM subsystem agreement that say, we'll take cuts to get our foot in the door, they've never worked for our members. It's the same old tired, live to fight another day rhetoric, and another day never comes. Our leaders have to quit making excuses, such things like, original equipment manufacturers outnumbering us 14-3, and that being the reason we can't organize better agreements. I believe our top leaders look at this backwards and borrowing from like the Field of Dreams, if we set the standard, they will come. We have to take action. We have to fight to protect what we have and then build on it. I look at the current situation. We just organized Dakota in Hazel Park, Michigan, adding a few hundred members. That's great. But the sad part of this, on the backside, we've sat back and watched GM's Lordstown, Warren assembly plants close. Belvedere's on life support right now. This is a negative sum strategy. We're organizing hundreds on the front end and we're losing thousands on the back end, not because of a lack of product or work, because of a lack of a will for our top leaders to take action. One other aspect we have to do in organizing, yes, we need to promote and provide more resources and organize in the sectors where we're having success, such as higher ed gaming.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keller, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, as a leader, you have to focus. When you look at the automotive sector and those outside of the automotive sector, all union members share the same common interest, which is our way of life, our wages, our benefits. Those are the things that we're trying to build up so we can continue to move forward. And I think at the leadership that we have in place now, we're more focused on the membership, and they can negotiate agreements that are in the interest of the membership. We wouldn't have a problem getting other facilities to bang on our doors to try to unionize. We wouldn't have to spend millions of dollars to try to organize. It would come to us, but we have to fix our internal issues first and listen to our membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have a minute to respond.
Yeah, the leadership in every one of these trade unions is failing the members. It's not only in rail, it's not only in auto, it's not only in nurses, it's every trade union in this country that you look at, and not only in ours, but others are failing the workers. And Mr. Curry made the reference earlier that they're working with unions in other countries. Exactly. They're working with the same failed leadership in other countries. And when workers see that their leadership is failing them, they need to take action on their own shop floors and organize in a committee that will fight, that is willing to lead, because their trade unions are not doing that. Right now, the rank and file, I have a committee organized in rail because the Presidential Emergency Board is blocking them from striking, trying to wear them out and keep them working and generating profits for rail companies. Again, it's that anti-democratic nature that these trade unions in every sector are fostering.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gibson, you have a minute to respond.
Lower the hand. Okay. Bottom line, what I'm looking at there is all the sectors have to be accounted for, right? So we're looking at the higher ed, we're looking at the IS, the top agricultural implementation workers, aerospace, the casino workers, and the nurses. You build the trust. The same reason I was touching on why Gary Castile had approached me. I know what it was. It's just dealing with different cultures abroad in Germany. Folks from Spain, Argentina. There's strength in numbers. And I know that the UAW for a while back did talk with the IG Metall union. They shut the country down over there. We have to have that trust. All I ask for down the road is that the members are going to support their president and their board. I mean, that's all I can ask, right? But at the end of the day, I'll give them 100%, but every sector has to be represented. And that's the bottom line. And so I will instill a team with me because, again, I don't know every sector, every detail, but at the end of the day, every sector has to be represented wholeheartedly. And that's my goal. And it's honesty.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have your hand up. You have a minute to respond.
Thank you, Steve. The Curry Solidarity Team is committed to building this organization in great numbers. That includes all sectors across the country. We'll do that with partnerships. We'll do that with climate control groups. We'll do that with other international unions, and it will be key. Despite some of the rhetoric that's been communicated across tonight, we are still the most sought after international union for organizing. And higher ed, we're growing greater than any other international union across the country. 17,000 research scholars currently in negotiations. We're growing within gaming, having organized first locations within Treasure Island, Wynn, and Encore in Las Vegas, and other upcoming campaigns. All of those campaigns and others, parts suppliers. And we're also hearing from a number of other workers, including a number of startups with regard to OEMs. We will be successful because together the knowledge, the issues are being addressed for each and every one of those employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Fain, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I don't have a response. I'm good.
Okay. Next question for Mr. Curry. Mr. Curry, a question about an important issue in the industry, in the nation, and the world. A member asks, as we see the auto industry transition from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, what is your plan to keep those jobs represented by the UAW? Many UAW members will unfortunately face job losses due to the transition to electric vehicles. How will the UAW keep these workers gainfully employed?
UAW's number one goal will be to protect those jobs. Regardless of the transition to EVs, autonomous, and other vehicles, our goal will be to protect those workers. The key piece on each and every one of those is training opportunities as that work transition. With the future announcements that have been made most recently, those announcements have been job creation. There's not been job erosion. Now, while we see powertrain and other components possibly being reduced, we also see new technology that comes into the industry as a result of this. We believe that that's the key piece in making sure that those areas are organized. And not only are they organized, but they maintain the rates that we've established over the years. That's a successful piece that we don't want to see a community that's impacted. We do not want to see workers lose jobs. We don't want to see workers transitioning across the country as a result of that to seek new opportunities. They should be able to build upon that in their communities. We're involved with a number of different groups, including the current Biden administration and others, including most recently the passage of the infrastructure bill, the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, and others that also provide key funding to support these industries and support the workers that are impacted most recently with this transformation. The transformation can happen and we can understand what's taking place globally, but the transformation can't take place at the risk of losing thousands of jobs of UAW members who fought and built this industry and were successful in it. We see great products, great components that are being introduced. We want to be part of it, and we're not sitting on the sidelines. We've been actively involved in conversations, whether it was with part suppliers or the Detroit 3 automotive suppliers or future companies that we're attempting to organize that are startups. We will be part of the conversation and we'll respect that process. But the key piece is protecting those workers at the rates that are available today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fain, you had your hand up. You have a minute.
Yeah, there are two main areas in the EV segment: joint ventures with companies we represent and new companies we don't, such as Rivian. We can't continue the course of aiming low and settling lower. That's our future. When the first battery plant joint venture was announced with no involvement with the UAW, our leaders should have taken action and set the tone that we're not playing around with our members' futures. Let's be real, these companies, our so-called partners, form joint ventures to sidestep our agreements and our union. And contrary to what the three Curry Slate vice president candidates said in the debate the other night, we are not way out in front of this. It's pretty apparent we're operating for three different playbooks. The VP at GM agreed to a sub-assembly rate, wages $10 an hour less. Ford announced $11.4 billion in investment in right to work Kentucky and Tennessee. And Chrysler announced a new joint venture, but there's no commitment on anything other than saying we want it under our master agreement, which when other leaders agreed to sub-assembly rates, it makes that difficult. So first off, everybody's got to get on the same page.
Thank you very much. 10 more seconds. Okay. Mr. Gibson, you have your hand up. You have a minute.
Thank you, Stephen. The electric jobs, bottom line, where we went, we had Gretchen Whitmer came in, the governor of the state of Michigan. She did a state of the state address, just due to the leadership with our advancement in the electrical, the heavy truck industry, the heavy battery, and the e-axle, the electric axle. We started those talks in 2017, 2016, 2017. With an $11 million investment. We've already touched into the E4 lab with our brothers over there in 412 that are working on the electric truck hot testing. So again, like President Curry did say, was that we haven't lost anything. We're evolving. We're making these agreements. That was something I tied up in the plan in 2019 in December before we ran into the COVID. But that is something we've had the foresight to be ahead of it, and we're going to continue to be ahead of the curve. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it was mentioned that we haven't had losses. Yes, we have had losses over the last 10, 40 years. So yes, we have had lots of losses. The bureaucracy's plan is to implement what the company says is possible. And that means more situations like Lordstown where plants are shuttered. If the company says we need less workers, what they're really saying is they need less hours to complete a job. We need to advance our own agenda. I'm a socialist. I'm working to advance a workers' agenda. Workers can use that for a shorter work week, in addition to the fact that we already should be paid more, not less. This should be applied to all areas of the union's work. The time has come to stop taking at face value what the company says it needs to be competitive. The company is trying to compete with other companies, and it does so by who can cut the most jobs and who can cut the working conditions down to their worst product, down to their worst and produce an inferior product. They're going to do exactly what the companies say they want. We have to advance our own agenda.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carr, you have 30 seconds of rebuttal time.
Thank you, Stephen. One piece that is key for everyone, despite some of these announcements that are taking place with regard to out years in 24, 25, and 26, the first employees, nor have the actual groundbreaking taken place in some of these locations. So to say that you would take action ahead of that, to say that you know that you'd be organizing those locations ahead of that, and the first employee is not in the building, it's a key piece that we all have to remember. We are engaged in those conversations. The Curry Solidarity team is playing out of the same handbook, and we all are aware of what's taking place with those 3 OEMs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question for Mr. Gibson, Mark Gibson. And this comes from a UAW member. Mr. Gibson, retirees have not received a pay increase, a pension increase, and I don't think in over 15, maybe 20 years. With the cost of living rising, will you be fighting to get them a pay raise? And I'm not talking about an extra $100 a month. And how would you achieve a pay raise for them? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, no, that was for retirees, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, legally, I mean, we know how that works. I'm all for getting retirees money, but legally on the pension, there are restrictions on that we cannot do. But each one of the contracts I've been part of was what I was illustrating in my opener, was that I've been fortunate enough with my committee that had parents that lost medical benefits, that lost certain perks in retirement, that we were able to gain perks back. It goes into your Christmas bonuses, right? But bottom line for us, it was the medical, which was big because our folks lost what was guaranteed to them for years on this their post-65 healthcare. And we've worked hard to get options for them, so to speak. I was able to clear out the VIVA fund, get them their money out of probably, I think it was around 1.7 million that was divvied up amongst all those the members specifically. So again, I do look out for the retirees. I absolutely hear them loud and clear. I'm tight with the retirees out of Detroit Diesel and GM. I will do what it takes, but also I'm sure I'll have plenty of suggestions. I'm sure I'll hear from a lot of members of ideas, but whatever I can do legally, I will do.
Thank you. Mr. Fain, you have your hand up. You have a minute to respond.
Yeah, so, first off, conditions have to be favorable to bargain for them because obviously retirees aren't a mandatory subject of bargaining, but we have been able to achieve increases and bonuses for them in the past. I don't forget where I come from. I always carry a check stub for my grandfather, the hired in Chrysler in 1937, with me every day that I work, as a reminder where I come from. Our retirees are why we all have jobs. But we have to elect leaders. If conditions are right, we have to take advantage of that. We've had for the last 10 years perfect conditions to address increases or bonuses for retirees, and nothing happened. We have to elect leaders who will recognize our retirees as the reason we all have jobs and not make excuses as to why nothing's being done for them. The Curry slate didn't even want retirees to be able to vote in this election. And though they tried to silence retirees, they're still pandering for their votes. It's pretty sad. They deserve better.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have your hand up. You have a minute.
Well, what all these candidates are going to be saying is that they're working within the forms of what's currently allowed. As I said, they're all capitalists. They're all going to work under what capitalism allows. And that's the state that the retirees find themselves in today. Workers need workers' organizations to carry out a democratic control over these productions of these facilities and reorganize society in a manner that benefits human need, not private profit. Every one of these candidates is going to be going for we can't do it because the company says we can't, or we can't do it because it's illegal. And the reality is these retirees are suffering as a result of that mindset. And we need to have a society that does take care of retirees, that does take care of human need and not prioritize what the companies say is possible and the profits of the narrow few.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have a minute to respond.
We look forward to being able to put those things on the table with regard to retirees. We will be fighting for the retirees, and it's just evaluating evaluating where pension plans are. What is that upfront funding going to be? The Pension Protection Act of 2007 and 2008 requires any improvements in pension plans for that funding to be applied upfront. We will be fighting to make sure that we can make those improvements. Yes, your question was right about how many years it's been, but it's a key piece for us to make the improvements for retirees regards to pensions and regards to bonus. And with regard to the question or statement about retirees not being able to vote, the UAW International Executive Board supported retirees being able to vote, not only in last year's November referendum, but the current election system that's taking place this year. The retirees are our foundation, they're our key, they're our backbone, and we will be supportive of them in every effort and vein because they established the grounds that each and every one of us are able to stand on today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you have a minute to respond.
Yeah, we want to sit there and talk about laws. Then how was it that the leadership in these companies were able to take COLA and the Christmas bonus from the retirees in the first place? They should have been grandfathered in. They should have never lost it. Ray Curry thought it was best to negotiate their pension increase, but even active workers haven't seen an increase in their pensions in quite some time. I believe last time was back in 2007. So whether you're a retiree or you're active worker, we should see an increase in our pensions. These companies are making billions of dollars in net income. They're getting local, state, and federal tax abatements. We're paying, the taxpayers paying for the infrastructure. The workforce is a lot smaller today than it was 20 years ago. There's no reason why the leadership can't get an increase in the retirees' pensions, active workers, and get pensions for those that don't have pensions and health care for those that don't have pensions or health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, your 30 seconds of rebuttal time.
Okay, I just want to touch on again some of the legality. Again, the simple facts are the retirees at 600,000, they're the majority. I mean, you know, they did build it. They built all of us. You know, I have nothing but to thank for my grandfather and my friends' grandfathers. I love Pretty Willie, if anyone knows Detroit, and President Obama talked highly of him. But in a nutshell, my guys that are in the plant, their families were affected. I'm dealing with a lot of like second and third generation. So again, I have received pension increases against all odds. I was able to do that in 16. Now, was there pension increases for the rank and file that are in the plant? But again, it was something I had to get out of the way that I was told I couldn't do. I did it in 16 and I did it again in 22. And I will keep doing it. And I will look for options with the membership, the entire membership, to figure out what we can do to keep people living and at least get what they were entitled to, what they were promised at these companies. And I will go to all ends to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next question is for Mr. Lehman to complete this round of questions. Mr. Lehman, you've loudly and repeatedly criticized wage tiers, the whole wage tier system. If you're elected UAW president, what would you do to eliminate them? How would you seek to eliminate them? And what would you do if GM, Ford, and Stellantis tell you and the UAW get lost? We have no intention whatsoever of eliminating the wage tiers.
Well, the reality is they're likely to say get lost. But the reality also is that the workers are the ones generating all the profits. If we're all organized internationally, we can shut any of these corporations down. There's a Ford company there's a Ford plant, in Saarlouis, Germany, and one in Valencia, and IG Metall, who Gibby referenced earlier, basically had Ford pit both of these companies against each other, and said, give us your lowest price. We're going to be electrifying. Who will take less? And UGT in Spain took less. And now they're closing a Ford plant in Germany by 2025. That's the nature of IG Metall, the nature of the trade union bureaucracy. It's a race to the bottom. What we need is international worker solidarity. We can shut all of these corporations down if we're organized. That's the reality. The power is already in the workers' hands. It just needs organization. So they may be able to say, well, pound sand, well, then you're not going to make $1 if we shut it all down. Workers already have the right to own GM. They got bailed out with our tax money in 2008. So we already paid for it. and now they're making millions of profits after getting bailed out with our tax dollars. That's insane. So they should not have the right to be privatized like that. Neither should any of these other corporations that have gone through the same failings. It's this free market that capitalists tout as being something that's intelligent, when the reality is we see with all these part shortages, plant closures, and everything else, the free market is madness. What we need is a planned economy, and we need worker control of that planned economy. And all these other people are for capitalism maintaining the structure of concessions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gibson, you have your hand up. You have a minute to respond.
Yeah, just briefly touch on it. Because again, well, Will said something interesting, about the Western and Germany, and I just want to touch on the E.G. Mattel. I brought ideas over there. I think most of the rank and file, especially in Detroit, the Indianas, they all get it. Bottom line, guys, they love working Sunday. It's double time. It was unheard of in Germany. They do it now. Why? Double time is double time. It's always optional too. We all know that. But at the end of the day, people are taking ideas, and that's the way I like to see it. I'm giving ideas abroad, things that were, back in the day, we were in our own little box. Now with social media, everything gets global, but I get a chance to travel and do these things abroad. But when you say like someone might get they're going to tell you to get lost, I'm living proof they won't tell you to get lost. But the companies have expectations too. Let's not be naive. There's a reason I grew up with an owner named Roger Penske, and I do look up to a guy like that when I was 18 years old and came into a facility as a guard, earning my undergrad, paying for my own school at Eastern Michigan. They didn't tell me to get lost. I worked with them and showed them the value of why the worker next to you not making that money, the animosity it created, and the company bought into that logic. You have to be able to convey that to the corporate leadership.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kelly, did you have your hand up? It was up, then it disappeared. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, we're in a global system, and not that I'm for socialism, because I'm definitely not. But global capitalism is playing each country's labor market against each other for the lowest bidder. We have joint ventures between these companies, American companies and foreign companies. And with these companies making global profits and get local, state, and federal tax abatements, and they're in the middle of a transition from combustible to electric, we could starve out the shareholders. They want to transition. You can't transition if the plants are shut down. There are ways to get these things back. You understand the US dollar is the world currency. It floats the rest of the world. If the US dollar were to collapse, it'd pull the monetary system down. We need to build up the middle class here in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have 30 seconds to respond, to rebut.
Again, what every worker needs to understand that's watching this is that we are the ones generating all the profit. Everyone else is just a parasite on that profit. All the bureaucrats, all the companies, we don't need them, they need us. We're the ones in the factories, the nurses in the hospitals, the teachers in the schools. We're the ones that keep society moving. It's not the owners, it's us, the working class, and we should be able to decide how we distribute that profit.
Thank you very much. So we're 93 minutes into this forum. I would like to do one more round of questions and then give everyone, 3-minute concluding statement. That might mean we're going to go to 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. Is that okay with everybody? You better not say. So I want to suggest we take a 3, 4, 5 minute, at least 5-minute break to stretch, to get some water, go to the bathroom, and we'll resume now. At 7:38, 6:38 Central. Okay. Mr. Curry, are you there? Will Lehman, are you there? Thank you. Will Lehman, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to resume. This will be the third and last round of questions. Then we'll go to closing statements of 3 minutes each. So I'm going to begin with a question for Brian Keller. Several UAW members sent in questions voicing the same concern about you. They voiced concern about your temperament. One UAW member wrote, "I've seen several posts of yours on social media in which you proceed to berate your opponents, resorting to name calling, verbal abuse with an abundance of inappropriate language and conduct." Another UAW member posed the question, "How will your temperament and combative managerial style work to your advantage with those that you will need in your service of the union? And do you feel that representatives from the big three will be receptive to this leadership style while sitting across the table from you?"
My actions are, the only reason I act that way is when somebody's disrespecting me. So if I got people that come onto my page and they're trolling my page, calling me names, discrediting me, saying negative things, I have a right to defend myself, and I will defend myself. There's not one person that's watching this forum right now that doesn't get angry. We all should be angry. We've taken concessions. We've lost pensions. We lost time and a half after 8. We have a tier and temp system. I have a right to be angry. We had a corrupt leadership that was intertwined with management. We had collusion. They stole from us. But when I got people coming into my page, stalking me, trolling me, I have a right to defend myself. So as long as management, if and when I get elected, if those individuals that are at the Solidarity House respect me, I'll respect them just the same. But if they're not going to respect me, then don't expect to be able to dish it out, and don't think I'm not going to force feed you, because I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Ray Curry. Mr. Curry, in the UAW vice presidential debate this past Monday, independent candidate Sharon Bell faulted the Curry Solidarity Team slate for not having a woman among its candidates for the top 5 UAW positions. But in that same debate, members of your slate pointed out that women are running on your slate to be directors of Region 1A and Region 9. Mr. Curry, what do you say to women who assert that your slate, your administration hasn't done enough to promote women, to advance women? And what do you think should be done to increase the voice and power of women inside the UAW? And what do you think should be done generally to ensure fair treatment of women, both inside the union and inside the workplace? Thank you.
Thank you. We're fighting for women each and every day. Currently, we have more women in the president's office, department heads in the history of the organization. Currently, 9 departments are led by women within the UAW. We have advocacy that's taking place, and women have a big voice inside of that advocacy. We've promoted women inside of our organization into staff roles. We have women into new administrative accountant roles that didn't exist previously within inside of the organization, brought on now as a result of the corruption to be able to have another layer. We've promoted women in organizing. We promoted women in servicing and in staff roles. We promoted women in general counsel. First ever, our general counsel is a female. To say that we're absent with regard to females in the organization would be kind of difficult to understand that statement. The Kerry Solidarity team is also promoting women. We're supported by women all across the country, active and retired. Our team represents a lot of history, and we have, for the very first time in the history of the organization, 3 women candidates for regional director. That's never heard of on the International Executive Board. And most recently, this International Executive Board previously had 1 in the past. We elected 2 during this term, and we have 1 new one standing for election on this team. We are respectful of women. We're respectful of women in the workplace. We'll advocate for women each and every day. This Kerry Solidarity team also was one of the first advocates to come out on the recent efforts with regard to women's reproductive rights. And we've taken a stand and that voice based on the recent Supreme Court ruling. We'll stand with our sisters each and every day. We'll advocate for them, active and retired, and we'll make sure that they continue to have a place right beside each and every man that's inside of the organization.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Curry. Mr. Fain, you had your hand up one minute.
Yeah, I just wanted to somewhat echo that. I mean, we have to involve women more in leadership roles, and that's why it was important on our slate that we had a highly qualified woman in one of the top positions of leadership as a secretary treasurer. And we have to focus on training up women for leadership roles, both locally and nationally. I've been a part of negotiating language nationally for apprenticeships, which has resulted in more opportunities for women in apprenticeships. And the other thing, we shouldn't have to fight the companies to provide sexual harassment and diversity training. We need them to take these issues as seriously as they do manufacturing process training, which they tend not to do. So in the end of it, when my administration, we definitely will put more resources, both staff-wise and financially, to address women's issues.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have a minute to respond.
The UAW doesn't care about women. All right. My campaign spoke with one woman worker, at least, that had an issue when she was pregnant, where she was working on the line and she was forced to do a job she wasn't supposed to do. And the UAW oversaw this and she had a miscarriage. The UAW does not care about women. It did nothing for her and it will continue to do nothing. That's why the power needs to be in the hands of all workers on the shop floor. Everyone needs a democratic say. With rank and file committees on the floor, you don't have workers going into situations that are unsafe for them or unsafe for their child. That's why we need to organize on the factory floor. And a vote for me is a rejection of this bureaucracy that's indifferent to these struggles. Just as they did nothing when abortion rights were overturned, they'll continue to do nothing for workers on the factory floor.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you have a minute to respond.
Sorry. My wife, who's the teacher, is right next to me with a master's degree. So she's, on top of me as always, because again, she's a strong leader as well. Very opinionated, but just like I want to go back to Castile, what was going to be my vision? What would I do differently down there in the South in Alabama to organize that Mercedes plant? What I told them is I would take my women, the strongest women, and I have some very strong leadership. I love them. My benefits rep, Tony Massey, Dione. I got experts in FMLA. I got experts in attendance. I got Elfrida. I mean, there's women, if I don't mention their name, I just love them like peaches, but women are strong. The only reason I sit in this seat as a 4-term chairman is because of women. I listen to them. I understand it. Are we equal? Well, in the grand scheme of things, yes. But when it comes down to jobs, my membership, the males, we all pick up the slack for each other. This will be no different as we go into other leadership roles. But I care about the women. I love the women. And again, that is why I sit where I sit today, is because of females. So, and good luck to Margaret Mock. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have 30 seconds in rebuttal time.
Thank you. I believe that in every one of our locations all across the country, men and women both play a significant role. It's a key piece that we'll continue advocating for. We'll continue advocating for it inside of the workplace to protect them and to keep them safe. And that is a commitment that the Cary Solidarity Team has, along with this international union. This institution has always protected the rights of women. It stood with women, whether it was the women's rights to have the right to vote, women's rights to advocate, women's rights to be represented inside the workplace. Just remember, World War II, who led the cause for this international union? Women.
Thank you. Time. Okay. Next question from Mark Gibson. Mr. Gibson, in your campaign material, you say that you eliminated the Tier 2 system at Detroit Diesel, and you say you were the first in the UAW to accomplish the elimination of Tier 2. How did you achieve that? And if elected president of the UAW, what would you do to try to get Detroit's big 3 automakers and other UAW employers to eliminate the tiered wage system?
Gotcha. Thank you. Yes, I was the first, and that's not even the platform I ran on. By happenstance, I came into the plant under a progression as a 4.5-year person, even though I worked there in 90. But in 97, I hired in. A year later, the progression, the tier had changed. No pension, a 13-year possible growing. We didn't even get to vet that out till 04. How did I end it? Well, I got elected. At one point, I was a committee man. I worked next to the employees. I watched the heartache, but I also watched the members grow with me, guys that hired in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years before my time, guys that came from the GM facilities or were moved into the Detroit Diesel factory. We worked together collectively, that entire membership, to move the bar from the 13, which was the end of 14, down to the 11 years, down to that 1-year extension. I was able to shave another year off. Do I do it by myself? No, I do it with my bargaining committee, good ideas, and just an attitude that I won't stop until it's right. And now we're at a point where they will conclude, like I said, they're 6 years from a hiring from 22, they're going to top wage, which is over 36.86 by 2028, and actually 2027 in some cases. So that's how I'll do it. But it comes down to, yes, I want to apply that logic. We didn't have temps. We worked with summer help. I don't believe in necessarily having temps all over the place. I stood with those guys on that strike line at GM in 19. And that was hard to listen to, but I understood it. There's good leadership over there in GM, Romulus. There's good leadership all over. I know what the leadership does. I know what we're up against. But again, we have great leaders in these positions. And at the end of the day, the rank and file have to, this is one thing I haven't heard, the rank and file have to ratify an agreement. The last I checked, okay, I can bring it to them, and I always will bring it to my team and to the membership, of course, to the absolute governing body. We take their demands. We take the demands resolution, but it's demands. What do you want? 9 times out of 10, I know what they're asking for, right? I've been with my plan a long time. It's the same thing that the rest of the country is asking for. Will I apply that philosophy? I'll leave you with one thing. My one committee man who helped me along the way, young guy, Jason Hibbler. I said, Jay, this is massive. It's a massive task. Apply the principles you applied to the 1,400 members here and just expand on that. And that's what my commitment is.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lehman, you have a minute to respond.
Well, just as the workers need to build rank and file committees to fight to abolish the tiered system, we have multiple tiers, not only in pay, but also in benefits. And a lot of times we can say, oh, we eliminated a tier, but the reality is we still have a tier in benefits. The working class needs to fight for everything it's going to gain. That's how it did it in the beginning, and that's how it needs to carry out a fight now. Things like paid maternity leave. The working class needs to fight for these things. It's not just going to be given by any corporation, and unions aren't going to fight for it for us. They would be already if they were, and they've chosen not to. And it's not only the UAW, it's other trade unions as well. BCTGM, none of them are fighting for anything for the working class. That's why the workers need to pick up the fight themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, like at the tier, I know he said about tier and benefits. Our benefits are all the same, with the exception, there is a different program for a pension versus a 401k. And in 1997, when I first came in, like I said, it was a year later, 1998, I sat in an office, listened to how it was sold to me by committee, but at the end of the day, we got to vote on that. That contract was passed at 80-20, 80% 20. I was young and I asked, hey, I want to get under that program. I got a year under a pension. How do I get on that program? You're touting so good. It ended up being that program is very good. My sons have came in and it's a phenomenal program. Now I understand everyone wants a pension, but there's also programs. It's not a teacher pension. Our supplement goes away at 62 in 1 month. You know, that's if you don't retire with the traditional 30 and out, the 85 points, the 60 and 10.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Question for Mr. Lehman. In your campaign statements, you say, and I quote, "The UAW is a union in name only. Its leadership, including 2 past presidents, were convicted for robbing us of dues money and selling us out in exchange for bribes from the corporations. The UAW bureaucracy is a subdivision of the companies, suppressing resistance to low pay and horrible working conditions. It doesn't unite us." You're running for president of the UAW as an independent without a slate. I think it's fair to say you've insulted the UAW bureaucracy. You've called it a subdivision of the companies. If you're elected UAW president, how will you work with that bureaucracy and with the International Executive Board? How will you be able to work with the many locals in what you say is a union in name only?
I don't intend to work with any of them. My pivot the entire time has been to workers on the factory floor, forming rank and file committees and making the decisions ourselves. I don't intend to use the same bureaucratic methods that have sold us out for decades. Others will try that and they will fail. They're not even trying to fight at this point. It's just a matter of having a spot in the bureaucracy. It's a matter of some I believe do get in those positions thinking they're going to make a change, but the bureaucracy swallows them whole. And no change has effectively been achieved by the bureaucracy that really has taken us forward, like I intend to with rank and file committees. And the reality as well is I talk about nationalism. And what I mean is the idea that's pushed that it's made in USA only. And how are we going to insource jobs? The jobs are where they're at. We can control their shifting if we have workers internationally, globally, fighting against these corporations that are multinational. We can't secure anything in one country. That's a flawed narrative. So my turn again is to workers on the factory floor to organize, because that is where all the power is. The power is not in the bureaucracy. We need to really be clear that it's 2 very distinct layers that we're talking about. And the bureaucrats here won't like that, but I'm not speaking to them. I'm speaking to the workers wherever they are, whatever industry they're in, that I'm telling them we need to reorganize society based on human need, not this system of private profit, of bargaining with the companies and doing what the companies say they'll allow. We need a system that works for us. And that's the only narrative we need to advance.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you have a minute to respond.
My understanding with Will Lehman is that he wants to get rid of the leadership structure from the Solidarity House all the way down to the floor and set up these committees. That seems kind of divisive, like it would break up the union in different sections and pieces when we're supposed to work together collectively. I also believe that if we reform this leadership and the leadership's transparent and they're working in the interest of the membership versus the company, we can change our path. And, you know, I'm one of those people that I believe we can make this change if the membership come together collectively, but I don't think the answer is getting rid of the leadership at the Solidarity House all the way down to the ground floor. That's divisive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fain, you have a minute to respond.
Yeah, bottom line, this just shows a disparity, and it shows why, when I've said before, the president of the UAW is not an entry-level position, and it just shows by those comments that he's made. The bottom line, if we form a bunch of committees, we're going to end up with several different agreements over the same sectors. We're going to have pitting workers against workers, plants against plants. I'm mad as hell about what's went on with our union in the past, just like a lot of our membership is, but that's why I'm running. The bottom line is this: when this is all over, we have to come together. And the bottom line is, it's all got to be for the betterment of the membership. We're going to be in big free. As soon as this election's over, we're going to find ourselves in big free bargaining. So I don't know how someone's going to come in and eliminate an entire bureaucracy and think they're going to have any success with this. So that's all I have to add to that.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you. I'm as an individual leader that I like to think the glass is half full. We're here to unify, not divide. Our foundation is solid. Our Constitution is solid. We need just to gain the respect and trust back of the members that they deserve. They are the governing body. But I would like to quote Walter Reuther. Okay, there is no power in the world that can stop the forward march of free men and women when they are joined in solidarity of human brotherhood. Walter P. Reuther. And those words stand so true today. So, like I said, elected, I'll be there for every member, period. God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you. Truly, solidarity prevails in all aspects of this organization. Our efforts through the reforms that have taken place since 2019, when led then by President Emeritus Rory Gamble and his current National Executive Board, will continue. They're the key pieces that we believe are building bridges for this membership and moving forward. Our transparency, our reform efforts, and our experience are key pieces for the Curry Solidarity Team. This Curry Solidarity Team is ready to hit the ground. If negotiations started tomorrow with the Detroit 3, this team is ready to start bargaining. We're not looking to gain experience over a period of time and start the bargaining. We're ready to hit the ground running with the bargaining. And I'll say one other piece at this point also, Stephen. I'm proud to say our products are made in the USA, and they're union made, and they're UAW proud products that we produce each and every day in every one of our facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, you have 30 seconds of rebuttal time.
Again, Mr. Curry ignores the global nature of production. The reality is the parts on these vehicles are coming from all over the world, and they try to divide us up, the working class, based on country. And that's seen nothing but losses for the working class. It's a flawed, old perspective coming from a bureaucrat who's made millions off of our dues, just as Sean Fain has, 1.4 million for Sean Fain. The only division I'm sowing is workers, not parasites.
Thank you very much. Last question of the round goes to Sean Fain. Mr. Fain, this is a question from a member directed specifically to you. Your slate has publicly questioned why any worker would want to organize with the UAW. Your candidate for Secretary Treasurer recently asked, how can we organize workers when we have supplemental workers, temporary workers in our contracts? Anti-union employers are following your campaign and messaging. What will you say to workers trying to organize with our union when their employer will quote your slate as part of its anti-union campaign, unquote?
Well, what I'll say is our slate doesn't have an anti-union campaign. Our slate has a pro-membership campaign. This is all about the membership. And as I've said before, when it comes to organizing, we struggle in organizing, especially in auto. And the biggest reason why we struggle in organizing is because we don't set the standard anymore. Again, I'll get back to it again. My grandfather's generation, this union was born out of a Great Depression, and it grew quickly because workers saw such a difference in what they could get out of a union. They saw the benefit of joining a union. So I don't view any issues with going forward trying to organize with anything we've said. The fact is, we've had corruption in our ranks, and these people have done things that never should have happened, and they've set this union back. But this is about the membership. And the bottom line is, I believe in the membership. And like I said, this, we've got to move forward, and I'll be fine moving forward, and so will our slate.
Mr. Lehman, you have your hand up, 1 minute to respond.
Again, to all the workers listening, we have not had corruption in our ranks on the working shop floor. We've had zero corruption. It's the bureaucracy that has had corruption. It's the bureaucracy that is under the watch of a federal monitor. It is not the workers that have mishandled any dues. It is not the workers that have made any of those poor decisions. We've been forced contracts that we hate. We've been divided up by the bureaucracy. We don't all get a pension. We don't all get that 85-point system, which I think workers should all know about. And they can contact my campaign for more on that. But these are all things that have gone because the bureaucracy has given it away while they maintain their comfortable positions. We are not the same. The workers are different from the bureaucrats. And every worker needs to understand that they should have the power directly in their hands.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, I believe you had your hand up. Do you want to respond for a minute? No? Yes.
No, Stephen, thank you.
No, okay. So, Mr. Fain, you get 30 seconds of rebuttal time.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So now we will go, thank you very much. Now we will go to the round of concluding statements. We'll go back to the original order that was chosen by lottery. Sean Fain, you will be the first to speak.
All right, thank you. I just want to say, this election is not about me or any of these candidates. It's about you, the members of the UAW. This is your opportunity. For the first time in our lifetimes and our history, every member gets to cast a ballot to determine who's going to lead this union and how we're going to lead it. Remember this when you mark that ballot. The Curry Solidarity slate doesn't want every member to have the right to cast that ballot. They want a convention system of election so they can control the outcome. So here's your options. You can elect the Curry Solidarity slate and make the company's dreams come true and expect more of the same top-down, IEB first mentality in their company union philosophy. Or you can elect inexperienced candidates, some who've never written a grievance or negotiated a contract, and waste another 4 years of opportunity as they learn the ropes of how to be a union rep. Or you can elect myself and our UAW Members United slate of candidates who are dedicated to putting the membership first, shifting the power and control of our great union back in the hands of the membership and effecting real change by eliminating the company union philosophy and taking action with the membership to get back to a union that's going to strategically fight for the membership and the working class. The current IEB already has 5 seats secured due to the regional directors that ran unopposed. So therefore, I encourage you to elect our UAW Members United slate of experienced leaders who can hit the ground running. We cannot survive 4 more years of an international executive board that puts its own priorities before the priorities of the membership. This is our generation's one shot to take this union back and get back to a union that sets a standard for future generations. Thanks for taking the time to listen. And I enjoy the fact, and I appreciate the fact that those of you that watch this can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fain. Mr. Lehman, you have 3 minutes.
Brothers and sisters, we must take power from the UAW bureaucracy into our own hands. These bureaucrats claim we need them, but we don't need them at all. On the contrary, we need to abolish the bureaucracy in order to unlock the tremendous potential power we have as part of the international working class. Ray Curry and Sean Fain do have experience. They have experience making 6 figures in our dues money while they sell us out. In the years of the worst corruption, when the UAW leaders were taking bribes and buying each other luxury gifts with our dues money, they were there. Their salaries kept increasing. They rose to the top of the trash heap. Ray Curry and the UAW opposed having direct elections in the first place. It makes me sick to my stomach to hear them claim their experience is a positive. What about the experiences of the rank and file who are watching this debate? While Curry makes $272,000 and Fain makes $156,000, there are auto workers who are homeless, who work 2 jobs because UAW wages are so low, who get hurt and sick and die at work because the UAW tells us the companies can do whatever they want. The companies are only able to do what they want because the bureaucracy allows it. What about the experience of towns like Lordstown and Hamtramck, where the UAW has closed plants and ruined entire communities? What about the experience of retirees on fixed incomes, of TPTs who pay union dues but receive no benefits, of workers who get paid less to perform the same work as the people next to them on the line? These bureaucrats' plan is to rob us all, to enrich themselves and help the companies profit. The entire working class has the power to change things, but we must take the power ourselves. We must build rank and file committees in our workplaces to link up with one another and form an alternate power structure to fight for what we need. We must link our struggles with auto workers in Mexico, in Canada, and across the world. We must fight alongside rail workers, teachers, nurses, steelworkers, and longshoremen, all sections of the working class exploited by the same network of corporations who control both political parties and run the government under capitalism. I'm asking you to vote for me, but that's not all I'm asking. I'm asking you to take a stand and help build this movement. Nobody is going to do it for us. If you agree with me, let me tell you, you are not alone. Workers everywhere want to fight. I'm sticking my neck out running in this election, and I'm asking you to stand up and fight back. Don't just do it for yourself, do it for your children and for your coworkers. With an international rank and file strategy, we can unleash the power of the working class and change the course of history.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
All right, thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Brian Keller, and I'm running for the International UAW President. If chosen as your next International UAW President, we will go back to the grassroots of collective actions to effect change within our union. I will make all UAW members and retirees' interests my first and number one priority. I believe that there must be a fine line between management and our union. And I will continue to make the necessary changes within our union to stop the corruption and the collusion between our elected officials and the very companies we work for. I believe in common sense negotiations and meeting the needs of the membership who build the products that produce the profits that keep these companies moving forward. I am a person with common sense, integrity, experience, transparency, and I also have the backbone and the will to fight in the interests of the membership. I'm asking that you stand with me in unity to help me lead this union down the right path. So today, I'm here to ask you for your support and your vote come November, so that we can reclaim the power and the control of our union, so that we can move together and move forward in solidarity. I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. And Stephen, thank you again for hosting a great forum this evening. Tonight, we've heard some stark differences between the different candidates. There's a lot at stake clearly in this union and in this election. The UAW as an institution that we all know, we've all supported for over 87 plus years, has been one of the most powerful international unions and still stands as a powerful international union today in the public. We represent so many different sectors and so many different opportunities in this time and in this moment. Our commitment is to be able to represent those active members inside of workplaces to improve their wages, improve their benefits, and improve their working conditions. But our top goal still remains to represent our retirees, whether that's through advocacy, through public forums, through things such as most recently, the Inflation Reduction Act, when some of our retirees were able to reduce their medical costs, different things that are commitments that are there in collective bargaining agreements. But it's a piece that we've all got to remember about what happens in our society. I bring a case to you on behalf of myself and also the Career Solidarity team. A team is committed, a team is ethically there and committed and experienced to be able to represent and move our organization forward to advance the greatest cause ever of this international union. What we all committed to when we first took an oath of office as members and then as elected officials for UAW. This is a piece that's important for each and every one of us. It's not about attacking other candidates. It's not about distorting records. I ask for your support because I believe that our team and myself as an individual and the Career Solidarity team together are proven tested, and work ready, experience ready to stand the test of time against any employer, to stand and advocate on behalf of every member, retired and active. I came from one of the most diverse regions with the second largest population of retirees outside of the state of Michigan. I represented those retirees each and every day through international area councils, through educational training, through advocacy in Washington and other efforts. Retirees are a foundational piece of what's taking place, but we've got to build this together. And the Career Solidarity team is committed to continuing the reform efforts that started in 2019 and advancing the cause of the International Union. And clearly, as the Monitor has even advocated most recently in page 21 of his third report. Following the meetings that have taken place, the union has improved its level of transparency and cooperation with the Monitor. The change in the stance alone illustrates the union's transparent commitment to its process and moving forward with things that they've implemented. We're committed to it, and the Career Solidarity team is committed to advancing this great international union. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, Mr. Gibson, you have 3 minutes to make the final closing statement.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank you, Brother Stephen, for keeping the forum moving along, making it fair for all the candidates, and thank you to all the candidates. Obviously, you all have good ideas. Obviously, I probably agree with a few other ones, that I've dealt with for years. And I know how the institution works and how we need to gain back the respect for our members. But from my conversations with the members during this campaign, obviously the trends have started to emerge. We had heard them throughout this forum. I truly feel I am the candidate to restore the trust, the pride, and the integrity. My bargaining team and I, which we are an own national team, were the first to eliminate the tiered wages in the heavy truck sector from a 13-year progression that only reached $24 an hour to a 5-year progression and the highest current assembly pay rate in the UAW at $36.83 by May of 2027. Further, by the end of the master agreement, May of 2028, every member currently employed, even those hired this week, will be at the full pay rate of their classification. I encourage you all to view my experiences, my qualifications, okay, the contract agreements, the highlights, what I've negotiated with my membership and my bargaining team that has been elected. Okay, Facebook page, it's Mark Gibby Gibson, or my website, which is gibbynow2022.com. But listen, honestly, at the end of the day, I can say what I can say, but what's going to be more profound is you've heard me this evening. You can read my material. What is most important to me is that you hear from the members in my plant, in the facility, but people that I have represented. You can view testimonials from UAW 163 members, both active and retired. So many reached out when I shared the nomination and the acceptance for the UAW president. The members wanted to have their voices heard, and I'm sharing their voices with you now. Go to my platforms and view the testimonials from the UAW 163 members, both active and retired. Again, the nomination, I'm the strongest candidate. You'll still see videos that are coming in currently. I'm the strongest candidate. I have an experience you're looking for, the global connections. Most importantly, I have a persistent leadership style that will address any suggestions that come my way. So many have said, no way, Gibby, that will ever happen. You can't get that. They will never agree. I have proven them wrong time and time again. Brothers and sisters, this is a historic one-man, one-vote election. Know that you will have a strong candidate in all sectors with the one-man, one-vote, experienced leader, ready to lead all sectors of this fine union. Listen to those testimonials. Understand that I'm not there to hurt people. I have a gentleman that I beat all the way back in 2011, the ex-chairman, that puts a testimonial down that he didn't have to do to talk about his experience as a 40-year member and how I beat him and how I treated him with respect and dignity like he deserved. And he reciprocated that. And that's how you build the UAW and you keep moving forward. So in closing, in solidarity, vote Mark Gibson, Gibby, and God bless.
Thank you very much. So we are now finished with all the closing statements. Just some concluding remarks. I want to thank the candidates for, I think, a really intelligent, respectful exchange of views. I want to thank the audience, all the rank and file members who tuned in, for caring about democracy in the union and hearing the candidates' viewpoints and caring about the future of the union. I want to thank the UAW and the Monitor for sponsoring this debate. And I just want to say, I'm honored to have been asked to serve as moderator for, a great union. My book I wrote about, how Walter Reuther was the greatest union leader of the 20th century. And it's great to see democracy in action like this. And I hope more unions have debates like this, and I hope the UAW has more debates like this. And thank you very much. And I should say, there'll be a video recording of this debate available, as has been the case for the vice presidents and the secretary treasurer's debates. And you could find links to that on the Monitor's website. And thank you very much. And everybody have a good night.
Thanks, Stephen. On behalf of the Monitor, thanks to all the candidates, and especially to you, Stephen, for doing a great job
Thank you.
on all the forums.